This video is brought to you by Squarespace. This image to me screams, this is a punishment. About 6 months ago, I did a video that was somewhat of a departure from my standard, really coffee-forward focused content, though it was still coffee related. I did a video where I roasted, of course, consensually and self-submitted your home coffee setups, and much to my surprise, it was pretty well received and people wanted to see a part 2. So once again, I asked on Instagram for y'all to submit your home coffee bars for roasting, or roast number 2 electric boogaloo, which is a working title. And as always, y'all came through. So on top of a bunch of brand new submissions, we have a couple returning familiar faces, or I guess familiar coffee bars, that are in search of maybe getting a higher rating. We'll see how that works out. And of course, we have our returning champion back with a brand new setup, trying to eke out 2 back-to-back titles in whatever this is. So without any further fanfare, let's turn up the heat. And first up, we're going to start things off with someone I know personally, friend of the show, Baristas Brew. And just first quick glance at this image, it really gives off some prison searchlight vibes. I don't know, it's Green Mile, Shawshank Redemption sort of coffee vibes here. But I will say, and one thing you're going to hear a lot throughout this video, it does have a good balance, at least in my opinion. You've got a flat burr, which is the niche duo, it looks like. You've got a conical burr, which is the niche zero. You've got a traditional pump-driven machine. You've got a manual machine. I see some filter coffee stuff. I see a lot of AeroPresses. I wonder why. My issue is organization. The organization is definitely lacking. There's really no centerpiece here at all. And I feel like Espresso should be more cohesive, right? The WDT tool is over there. The tamper and RDT is over here. It's just a little too mishmashed. You know, I think it just feels a bit chaotic for my taste. So I will give it it's a solid 6 out of 10. All right, so next up, we're looking at Ankit. And at first glance, nothing jumps out as super offensive until you just look just a teeny tiny bit closer and you see this sign, okay? This has real live, laugh, love vibes. And if there's one thing you know, if you've watched the previous one, is that's just a really big ick for me when it comes to stuff on coffee bars. That's gonna pull your score down quite a bit. Your design score is really suffering on that one. I do think it's interesting there's so much open space in the middle. The distance from the grinder to the espresso machine is a little bit confusing, but maybe you're making pour overs in the middle there. But really, my eyes just keep drawing back to that sign. Where's the portafilter also? That's another thing that's sort of a pet peeve of mine, when the portafilter is like hanging up somewhere or nowhere to be seen. So I think I'm going to have to give this one a 4 out of 10. All right, next up we have Ishmael? Is Ishmael? Hold on, we're gonna look this up. How to pronounce?
Ismael.
Ismael? I don't know. Ismail? I think I'm pronouncing that right, but even if I'm not, it looks like you have bigger problems. This one looks like someone put baby in the corner. I feel like you've been forced to minimize your space. This image to me screams, this is a punishment. I'm not sure what you did. I'm not sure what's going on here. The way everything is really jammed in, like you have this pushed up against the back wall. You have the grinder, like everything is kind of in this shape of the wall. I don't know, like don't get me wrong, I like to have a smartly laid out espresso coffee bar setup, but I also do think that it's worthy of counter space wherever it goes. It's a piece in the kitchen, right? It's like any other appliance. I think it should be respected in that way, but maybe I'm crazy because I am. But anyway, I do think the equipment though is nice. Again, we have a sculptor. Love to see it. It's a great grinder. I haven't tried this. This is a 78, I believe, but I haven't tried that one, but my guess is it's just as good as the 64 that sits back here. And got a L'Elite. I think this probably pulls some decent shots, probably make some decent coffee with it. I can't get over the fact that you've been punished, and I want to give you extra points because it feels like you've been punished. So let's do a flat 7. Yeah, 7 out of 10. I'm happy with that. All right, Gillis on Twitter. This is like the exact opposite of the last one, right? The last one felt like a punishment, or maybe you're sharing your space with someone. This one just screams, I'm single. you are out here fully spread eagle from water chemistry on one end to grinder village on the other. I would like to see more balance, though. It does lack a conical option. You do have, again, we have another sculptor. This is apparently popping off right now. But you have two flat burr grinders. I'd love to see a conical thrown in the mix to elevate that balance a little bit. I just also feel a little bit weird about grinders or machines in corners like that. I just feel like that's such a weird layout. I like straight lines. My brain just wants to go to straight lines. So that's where we're at. But it is a solid setup. You've got two solid grinders. You've got your Commandante as well. You got your pour over setup over here. Interestingly enough, you do have, looks like 4 pitchers and 1 cup. It's an interesting ratio. But I would just say this, I'll match, well, yeah, let's match the last one. I'd say this, even though it's very different, like the opposite of the last one, it still kind of hits a lot of the same angles. So I think it would be unfair to give this anything less than a 7. So 7 out of 10 for this one as well. So this next one is a revisit. This is Robertobeffa. And looking at these two images side by side, there's really not a lot of change from the last roast. Of course, I will say it is a solid old school coffee setup. The classic Linea 1 group with the classic Mozart Robur, I believe is what this one is. And originally I gave it an 8.5. And I think because these images are just so similar, it just added some mood lighting. I don't think I can really up the score and be reasonable, or even take it down and be reasonable, because it's just nothing has changed. But I will say that it is the most Italian setup I'll probably see today. So with that, I'll give it 2 of these. All right, on to the next one. Next up, we have Philip. Now this I like. It's minimalist, it's simple, it's focused, it's clean. I don't love that it looks like it might be next to a sink. I'm not sure what that is over to the right there, but to me that looks like a sink, possibly. But it looks like a flow modified Gaja. You have the Etsy special Mozart single doser program happening here. Everything is within reach. Everything is right there. I think the only thing really pulling it down for me is the room itself just feels a little clinical, and as I mentioned, it's next to a sink. But I'll say this is a pretty solid 7.5 out of 10. And of course, next up, we have Mr. Samuelmindermann. And I think there's just a lot of feelings coming at me all at once looking at this image. Now, out of the gate, obviously, the machine is a solid choice. And I love these side panels in the GS3. I'll get a different picture of them so you can see them closer up. They have they're space themed and they're rare. I don't really see them in the wild very often. I think I've only seen pictures of them. So that's cool. That's some bonus points for style on that. I think the table is nice. The space is nice. I like the contrasting colors. I like the yellow. I like the black. The grinding choices are good. I would like to see a bit more balance in this. I see you have a single dose Eureka and the Libra, which I use in my kitchen and love. And the plant looks like it's thriving. But behind the plant is where I'm suffering from a little bit of PTSD. Now, if you didn't watch the original, we did have a situation. All the no. Everything no. I'm not even going to look at the equipment. This light alone is giving me a headache. I can't imagine having that on ever. But it does look like you maybe tried to hide that, or it's just less of a centerpiece. It's not massive. It's not in a dark room where it just looks like it's blaring out your eyeballs. So either way, kind of weird coffee sign or not, I would say this is the highest one I've seen yet. This is a 8.75 out of 10. And next up we have Noah, which is, another person I know personally. I don't think I've seen their bar before. So this, we've got some things to address. All right. First up, let's talk about what I like. Okay. You got the Rancilio Silvia. That's a solid machine. You do have 2 different grinders, but it looks like you have it set up to where you have your espresso on the left, you have your filter on the right. There are no filter papers, but that's fine because, let's be honest, espresso is better. But beyond that, you have a pile of random screws here, which is a dangerous thing to have around your grinders. I've definitely pulled a lot of screws out of people's grinders back when I worked in the service sector in coffee. Also, are you trying to dox yourself, Noah? Why are you leaving your mail out and sending me a picture to put on the internet? That's like a 0 out of 10 just for survival instinct. But I'm going to be nice here, and just like the previous one, I'm going to say the equipment itself kind of lifts you up, right? From a 1 to a 3. So yeah, let's use 3 out of 10 for Noah's doxing setup here. So next up we have Kawagraphia, and I may be butchering that name. I apologize if I am. But the thing that's drawing my eye just immediately is this drip tray. That is a chonky boy. I'm a big fan of that. Is that like a gallon? That's huge. But beyond that, there's something about the perspective of this image. Now, I'm not going to take away points for this, but I don't know if I'm the only one here, but the fact that it was taken maybe on a fisheye lens or sort of at a weird perspective, it's making my brain melt. It looks like it's AI generated, which is kind of throwing me off. But everything on the bar itself, it feels usable, but also just a little too condensed. And I think in my mind, I can just imagine this looks like a usable room on the other side, right? This bar sort of is in an entryway. And I imagine using the other side of this room, I don't know if it's like a living room or an office or something, and looking over and seeing like the back of all this equipment, it just seems weird to me. But generally the gear appears to be solid. I'm definitely a fan of the sculptor. I'm glad to be seeing more of those in these images and out in the wild. So I'll say that sort of pulls this one back from the brink a little bit, and I'll give this one a 6.5 out of 10. Next up we have fyeck, and if you watch the last roast, this one hits a similar vein for me, and it's just so much chrome. It's just so shiny. There's just shine. It's just shine bright like a diamond. It's just too much. There's too much chrome. It's just not for me. You can see the reflections on the wall. It just, I don't know. It doesn't really, I don't like the visual of that. Also, I hate keeping chrome clean, and I'm big on having like a clean bar. Keeping that clean is a nightmare. But beyond that, I don't have a whole lot of things that strike me in any sort of negative way. Everything looks fairly cohesive. I'm liking the colors. I'm liking the kind of juxtaposition of kind of a traditional looking E61 style machine with a screen and that like hand crank sort of like grinder, which is kind of a cool thing you don't see very often. So generally I'm not mad about it. It strikes a vibe. And chrome, I don't want to take off too many points for it just bothering my eyes. It seems like you're a big fan based on looking at everything. I do like the unfinished wall in the background. I like that. I think that looks good. It's kind of a tough one, but I think I'll give this one a 7.75 out of 10. All right, next up on the chalking block is Knobular. Now, immediately, this just gives me anxiety. All this stuff is really, like, all these jars or containers are way too close to the edge of this thing. And the cups are also, I feel like anytime this thing moves at all, like everything is jingling and touching and, seems risky. Also, the cabinet looks very close to the stove. Like this one burner is like right up against it. I don't know. That makes me a little anxious as well. In terms of usability, it's kind of odd to have your grinder is all the way over to the side. Did you max out the weight on this IKEA cabinet? I don't understand why it's all the way over there. I feel like having that extra weight would maybe keep it more solid, but that's just maybe wishful thinking. Obviously, there is a good amount of organization here, which I do like. But the main thing that's kind of keeps continually drawing my eye to it and reminding me of something is all the coffee labels slapped on the back. Now, I mentioned it again in the previous one that I don't love the idea of like coffee art or labels as coffee art in the coffee bar area. It just feels a little too, like I mentioned, on the nose. But this layout of the labels and coffee things really just has a very like Pepe Sylvia kind of vibe to it.
There's no Pepe Sylvia, you gotta be kidding me! I got boxes full of Pepe!
So overall, I would say that this one is maybe a 4 out of 10. All right, we're looking here at Joe J 1993. And listen, there has to be one of these in every group of photos I get, at least one. And this situation is an anxiety driver for me. I feel like there's a lot of stuff going on here. the grinder is like pushed to the edge, but the machine is all the way back against the wall. And that's before we start getting into all this clutter and everything like that. I don't know. It just gives me, like I said, it gives me anxiety. I don't know the circumstances where you would need these cups. These look like bowls, and the pitchers don't like they're big enough to actually fill them. So that's an interesting dynamic. There's just a lot going on here. And I don't know the circumstances, but it's cluttered, it's messy. The equipment is solid. I do think the Gaggia paired with, looks like a Baratza Sette, is a solid setup for home espresso, especially to minimize space and cost. But I just would like to see it be a little more cohesive, a little tighter, a little cleaner. So I would say, I don't know. I think I'll give it, the equipment saves it, brings it back from the brink, brings it back from a 1 to a 3. So 3 out of 10. All right, so now we have Phil, and Phil is back for a second attempt at a higher score. And if you recall, Phil's previous entry was next to a sink, which I definitely will give you downgrade points if it's right up, bumping right up against the sink. And when he sent me this, he said, look, I moved it. It's not next to the sink. So it is indeed not next to the sink. But, you know, and I still stand by that a commercial 2 group is too much for a home, generally speaking, unless you're like, you know, living in a house with like 12 other people. With all the space and the power it uses and the heat created. But he did move it away from the sink, as I mentioned. So I'll add 2 points to the original score, which was 2. So that's a 4. But the mirror placement, when you just gonna like stare at your face while you prep your coffee, I don't know. I think that's weird. So I'm gonna give that a -1. So you've moved up. You have moved up from a 2 to a 3 out of 10. Congratulations, Philip. Last but certainly not least, we're going to take a look at the champion from last year's new bar. So first up, this is the one that won last year. And let me explain why. You have a great mix of everything here. You've got a lot of different textures, colors, natural light, plants. You've got a capable espresso machine. You've got 2 different grinders. You've got a conical and a flat burr, which isn't necessarily the most important thing to get a high score, but it is important in my mind for that level of bar and the balance. And you also have that exposed brick, which I love. The neon sign is a vibe. You know, it's all just a very nice, clean setup. So now let's take a look at the new setup. It doesn't have the same magnetism, I guess. It doesn't have the same overall, like, I don't even know how to describe it. The ambiance is gone. There's a significant drop in the vibe. So you do have good equipment. He still has maintained a solid bar. You've got the Streitman lever machine. You've got the Zerno Z1, which hopefully soon I'll have. I'm on the wait list for one of those. So it's a nice setup. It's a nice lineup for sure. The equipment, I have no real complaints on. You do lose a little bit of balance, obviously, now having just a flat burr grinder and no longer having the conical. And they kind of mentioned the reason why, that they were trying to get more in touch with the craft. And I understand why leaving the decent behind, that makes sense. But yeah, the equipment's a little less balanced. The ambiance drops. This obviously isn't a 9.5 out of 10 like the previous one. Unfortunately for me, this one is going to drop a full point. So this one lands at 8.5 out of 10. And unfortunately, with that drop in your score, it takes an Otter Coffee from the top spot to actually second place, with 1/4 of a point behind the new best in show from Samuel Mindermann, who had that great GS3 setup and surprisingly also had that bright neon coffee sign, which again, I have some trauma behind. But a hearty congrats to Samuel, and of course for everyone for submitting and being part of this video, part of this community. I promise next time I do this, if you want to see another one, I will be sure to try and collect some entries in a couple other ways. I know not everybody has Instagram, and honestly, I'm less and less interested in dealing with Instagram myself, so I understand that. But if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos like this, more roasts, a new roast, maybe a series coming up every 6 months or so, absolutely let me know that. And also, how would you rank some of these bars? How would you rank the one that won? How would you rank the lowest bar? Do you think I was being fair or whatever? Drop your answers to those questions and any others you might have in the comment section down below. And as always, I'll see y'all next week. And don't forget to support this video's sponsor, Squarespace. Using their powerful platform, you can create a beautiful website for your community or business, which allows you to connect with your audience through their comprehensive blogging features, online shop, and even exclusive sections of your website. Squarespace also utilizes a fluid engine website design system, which gives anyone and everyone the ability to lay out and create the website of their dreams with just simple menus and drag and drop. So head on over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Sprometheus to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that little bell button for notifications of new videos posted every Friday. Check out my Instagram @Sprometheus for content throughout the week. Help support the channel by considering becoming a member for early content access. And as always, stay caffeinated. Pony boy.